All right. Second review of the night. Like I said earlier in the first review I posted during this time, or at the state that the world's in, I have plenty of movies to pull from. I could go in alphabetical order if you want. I could go by actor. I could go by director. I could go by genre. I could go by bad. I can go by good. I can go by Oscar nominations. I could go by year. Anything, anything. There's plenty of movies. But of course, I'm going to go after movies that I've watched before and that I like. Next week, I may throw in a movie that I haven't seen before, just for shits and giggles, you know. But I chose Bullet for this second review. Came out in 1968. It's a Steve McQueen joint. I have to say, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna stand by it. It's a horrible movie. Now, I feel like I'm gonna, if anybody watches this, I'm gonna get a what? Why would you say that? Because there is there's no story. It's basically I feel like this is how this movie got put together. Steve McQueen was like, "Hey, I want to make a movie." They're like, "Sure, Steve, anything you want." Uh, but and he had them like a sticky note like this, something equivalent to that was back in that day, with like green car on it or something like that. And they're like, "Yeah, but we need a script. That is the script." I mean, I hate to try and bash. I hate to bash this movie so much because it definitely holds a place in a lot of car guys' hearts, car guy and car girls' hearts. But it's not there. The story's not there. Like I said, I mean, I basically feel like Stephen Queen found a pretty girl and was like, "Hey, I got a story now, and I got a vendetta or something like that." Like, no, that's not a story. And I know the quality of movies being made back then were way better than this. There's plenty of good movies that came out back then. I can't name any off my head. Maybe I should have made that argument. But no, I'm looking at it from an entertainment standpoint. Now, have I watched it a whole bunch of times? Actually, no. I've watched the chase scene. There's one chase scene. I've watched that several times. And I'm not ashamed, or I don't even know why I would be ashamed. Because I always preach to people that you need to watch the entire film because because you're robbing yourself of the jewels that could be given, the jewels that could be given when you're patient when you watch a movie. There's a movie called The Deer Hunter. That's another long movie that came out. I feel like I'm not 100%, but it was in like 10-year period around the same time as this movie came out. And yeah, there's one scene in there I think that a lot of people quote, but I'm like, it's important that you watch the whole movie in order to uh, get the full force of that scene. You know, as far as me watching the whole movie to get the full force of the chase scene in this movie, no, not necessary because the chase scene stands alone. I mean, I'm telling you, they don't give enough background in his girlfriend's character. Nothing. They give more background into his partner's character, which isn't much, and him, and it's sort of like a bro flick. And they really don't give enough background to him. All they say is, "Oh, this guy," and his name is Bullet. I mean, he has a name, but his nickname is Bullet. So they're like, "Yeah, he's a rebel. He doesn't really like following the rules or working with anybody else." I'm like, "Oh God, you gotta be kidding me!" But the cars, oh man, but I don't I believe it's a '68 Mustang fastback, so that it's a really desirable car. Even in stock form, believe it or not, it's not the best. Those cars stock back in the day aren't the best. I mean, because they weren't really equipped for doing anything except like looking a certain way, and they weren't really equipped to handle. And there's a 69 charge, I believe. Maybe a 68. I'm not 100%. Don't bash on me. I never claimed to be expert in anything. What's that phrase? What's that phrase there? What is it? How you say that phrase? Jack of all trades, master of none, or something like that. That's probably if I had to describe myself, I'm probably something along those lines. But yeah, it's basically a. As a matter of fact, that car is one of the characters. Believe it or not, it's one of the starring. It has a starring role in that movie. Um, as far as the other actors, there's one other actor in there. I wrote his name down. Robert. Can't say his last name. He has some pretty good roles. I think he was in a TV show, a really popular TV show of the time. But he's a good actor. He has a really good he has a really good presence. His voice gives him a lot in the role. Um, okay, let me try to give an overview of it. So it follows a roughneck detective who has a heart, and they wind up stumbling on a case of a guy who's like in with the mob, but of course the mob wants him to sleep with the fishes, basically, or it's something like that. Uh, so they're trying to protect him, doesn't really work out. So he's trying to cut corners. Oh yeah, and I forgot about that. I forgot about that part. So he's trying to cut corners and still get the case wrong, and they find out, hey man, you're not following procedure, and I gotta take you off and take his badge and his gun and all this goofy stuff. And did they take his badge again? Actually, they didn't take his badge again. They were just mad at him. um, there was a part in there where this movie came out in '68. You have to think about the climate in America at that time. Um, this was like the height of, I wouldn't say the height, but this is one of the more deadly years in the Vietnam conflict, and also, uh, I won't say more importantly, but just as important, if not a little bit more important, the rights of African Americans in this country were uh, put under the spotlight during this time. And there was a black actor in here who was actually a doctor, and they try to play that social justice type stuff there. It's a little bit better done than that, or a little bit better done than would be handled today. But they're making a point, which I'm appreciative of that. Help put me where I'm at today, whether I want to acknowledge it or not. Small things like that in film actually. Uh, Small things like that in film, like uh, a white gentleman sticking up for a black gentleman, uh, makes it easier for me to live in America. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. I hate to go down that road, but I forgot about it. It just popped in my head, so I had to put that out there. But back to this trash movie. No, I don't want to be. I don't want to be sitting here and ragging on this movie for the whole time. I do have to rate it pretty low. Um, I think one of Steve McQueen's best movies he was in was The Great Escape, and he didn't have a major role in it. Now, I won't talk about that movie too much. It's a war movie. But, man, it's just not there. The story, the character arcs for each individual character is just not there. It's just not there. They don't have enough setup. But to be honest with you, this is one of those revolutionary movies. I know revolutionary is a big word to be using in this situation, but it's one of the first movies to do what it did. You know, to to put a chase scene in there like that. I mean, to that magnitude, I feel like, and um, they tried to build Steve McQueen's character up in a certain way. They tried to show him as uh, stubborn and rough around the edges, but also very compassionate. They tried to make this something great, but you know, this was just a stepping stone for movies to come after it. I think a lot of cop dramas or whatever you want to call them follow the same blueprint even to this day. Even the comedy ones follow the same blueprint because there's a little bit of humor that goes back and forth with these two characters anyway. That's the good of it. But like I said, it's just not enough substance for me with the characters. I mean, it's just like I won't even say it, but I will say this: one of the worst movies I think I've ever saw was Lamar or The Maz, and that's another Steve McQueen film. That's literally like documentary footage of the 24 hours of Lamar, and then you throw Steve McQueen in there with another pretty girl, and they try to make it a story. Doesn't work. There's no story to it. Just like this one. Like I said, I bring this question up, I think, every review almost. Is it good for a director, an actor, whoever? Is it good for that person to have almost 100% control over a film? I don't think so. You need somebody. You need to have like a voice of reason or an alternative opinion on certain things to kind of like bring balance to the film. Now, sometimes it may work because a person has a vision and they've been sitting on this idea for however many years. And over that time, they've been softened down through some ideas and gotten ideas from other people to make their story stronger. But in this case, I feel like it was really just hobbled together. Um, it made a really iconic car out of the Bullet car. I think Ford to this day sells a Bullet Mustang in that British racing green, believe it or not. So for that, yeah, and like I just mentioned a few moments ago, it it laid the path for a lot of movies afterwards. Because to think about it, came out in '68. I mean, that's really early in film history, to believe it or not. I mean, I think I went over this when I reviewed All Quiet on the Western Front. I mean, that came out in the '30s. You start doing math. I mean, it's really early in filmmaking in general. Yeah. I don't know what am I saying. I like the chase scene. If you said, hey, only thing I got to watch is Bullet, I'd be like, cool. I can watch that movie and have a conversation with somebody, and then when the chase scene comes up, I'll be quiet. That's just my opinion on it. I'm gonna rate it low for that reason, though. All right, one more review to go tomorrow.